everyone, it's Taylor here, and today I want to share with you how I created this Mother's Day card for my mom using our Brimming with Love stamp set. So the stamp set comes with an outline floral bouquet, and then it comes with separate stamps that are meant to be used to fill the florals. So you can see the outline stamp here on the back, and also if I hold this close up to the camera, you can see just how tightly trimmed our stamps are, so you will be able to place those really easily inside the stamp set. And I will say that it's not meant to be perfect. You can see those open white spaces. That is intended in the design, and so it gives it a little bit more character. So let's get started with our Misty. I will be using the outline bouquet stamp, setting that up and stamping it onto sugar cube cardstock. I'm aligning it in the middle of my cardstock and using the lid to pick it up. And then you can see I'm going to adjust it just slightly so that the bottom of that vase is straight across the line on my Misty grid. That's how I know my bouquet will be straight when I stamp it onto my paper. So I'm stamping that down with our Oreo hybrid ink. And you can see just how perfectly that's stamped, but it's nice to have a really great crisp image, so I'm going to give it one more stamp and put that down. And now we're going to start with our fills. I have this one that's very closely trimmed. That is the largest flower in the center. You can pick that up with the lid and stamp that with pink champagne ink. Now, if you were doing multiples, it would be a great way to just stamp all of your black first and then stamp all of your pink champagne and then move on from there. So it's really easy to create those multiples. Now, this one I set up on a block because I'm using it twice and it was just a circle and really just easy to place it. Now I have two stamps that I am going to set up and stamp with candy corn ink. You can see that little one that looks kind of like a branch with berries on it. That fits just in between those two guava flowers. After those, I am going with the plum punch. This one is perhaps the hardest to set up. You just need to pay attention to where those two bumps are and make sure that it aligns with your flower. But again, if you don't get it perfect, it just adds to the character of your stamped image. And around the outside, we are going to add the 4 different greenery pieces, and you can tell how those line up here as I show you the very smallest stamp and then the second smallest there along the bottom. Pick those up with the lid and stamp with pea pod ink. And then the very last part is the fill for the bottom. Now it is also very closely trimmed, and I'm not even going to bother with a transparency sheet to make sure I have it in the right spot. I'm just going to stamp it down and it is perfectly aligned in there. Now that our bouquet is finished, we are going to use the Brimming with Love sentiment set to add our sentiment. I need to take those pieces off of the lid and pick up the sentiment. I wanted to get kind of a variegated look to the sentiment when I stamped it with 2 different colors of ink that is possible. So I'm starting with the Cookie Monster ink. I inked the entire sentiment, and then I added blue raspberry, a slightly darker color, just to the top and the bottom to give it kind of that watery look that would mimic the inside of a vase. And now that we have that all finished, we're going to take that out of our Misty and we can set it up with the coordinating die, just lining that up around the edges and using a bit of removable tape to adhere it before running it through my Big Shot machine. If you did get outside of the lines with your stamping, you can see that a lot of that gets cut off with the coordinating die, so no need to worry too much about that either. I'm opening up my embossing tab on my Big Shot, and we will use the Subway Tiles embossing folder on sugar cube cardstock to create a little bit of texture. I am making sure that that is straight inside the embossing folder. If you do get that design crooked, it is one that you will notice, so make sure it's straight in there, and it creates a really beautiful texture on the background. I want to call out that texture even a little bit more with some of our sea salt ink, which is a very light gray and creates just a little bit of contrast that's needed for this card. Our bouquet is going to look so pretty in the center of that stenciled background. The next step is going to be to create a small bow using baker's twine. I like to make one loop and then go as if I'm tying a shoe, adjusting those loops to the size that I want and then cutting off the excess string. I'm adhering that bow with a small glue dot at the top of the vase. To give the vase a little bit of lift, I'll be using 1/16 inch foam tape and adhering that to the center of the Subway Tiles stenciled panel. I'm using my favorite adhesive Scotch dot roller to add adhesive to the back of that panel and center it on my Oreo card base. I'll be using a little bit of liquid adhesive. The Tombow Mono Multi was what I had closest to me, so I grabbed that and used it to adhere the frame. I hope you learned something new today and you're feeling inspired to give this stamp set a try yourself. You can find all of these products at the Tailored Expressions web store at tailoredexpressions.com.